It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as we look at whether The Rock is set to appear in an upcoming episode of The Simpsons, Kenny Omega discusses a potential relationship between WWE and AEW, and we have more on AEW plans being changed due to the signing of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first, let's take a look at an interview with the Battleground podcast, where they hosted AEW announcer and talent scout Mark Henry, who discussed which AEW talent has caught his eye since joining the company in May of this year. He mentioned several names on the men's roster and said, "I really like Will Hobbs' work ethic. He's a sponge. He wants to learn, he wants to be better. Darby Allin, Ricky Starks, All Ego Ethan Page are people I talk to on a regular basis. Max Caster, talented. Anthony Bowens, the Acclaimed, is one of my favorites." I can't say I disagree with any of these names, and I think Max Caster is somebody that goes under the radar a little bit, perhaps due to him being part of a tag team, but I personally see him as being a future main eventer, and that's right, you heard it here first. Henry went on to mention that he's recently been a mentor to the former fitness model Jade Cargill, who he said is going to be a superstar once she picks up the wrestling side of things. He said right now she's working too fast, which has caused her an injury, pointing out that she needs to slow down and work on the fundamentals and evolve from there. So we're going to slow down, work the fundamentals and let her evolve. It took me 3 years, she's been in less than 1. So the Jade Cargill that we're going to get in 3 years is going to be one of the main event players on the show. She's already must-see TV, but we'll be talking about her like we're talking about Kenny Omega in 3 years. Again, I don't disagree with Mark on this one, as Cargill has a great look and could be a real powerhouse of the women's division in the future. Obviously, she's pretty green right now, but with some work, she has huge potential. Next up, New Japan Pro-Wrestling have announced the upcoming Super Junior Tag League, which will begin on August 7th. This will be the 10th edition of the tournament, which has run annually since 2010, although there was no tournament in 2011 and 2020. Past winners include the Young Bucks, Red Dragon, which is the team of Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, as well as Matt Sydal and Ricochet, and many more. The tournament will see 6 junior heavyweight teams compete in a round-robin style league, with the top 2 teams advancing to a final to crown the winners. Taking part will be Bullet Club's El Phantasmo teaming with his stablemate Taiji Ishimori. We'll see 2019 winners Roppongi 3K, Sho and Yo. Suzuki-gun's Yoshinobu Kanemaru and El Desperado will be in it. Team 1 or 8, which is Raisuke Taguchi and Master Wato. The Far East Connection, which is Gedo and Dick Togo. And finally, the team of IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Robbie Eagles and Tiger Mask. The tournament will start on August 7th and the final will be held 10 days later on August 17th and will run throughout the Summer Struggle Tour. Malakai Black appeared on the Wrestling Perspective podcast this week and spoke of his time in WWE and revealed that he was in line for a run with a championship before he picked up an injury. Discussing his time in NXT, Black revealed scrap plans for a second NXT title run and said, "It was me and Tommaso Ciampa. Tommaso takes the belt, and then it was apparently leading into me and Johnny Gargano for a while, and then it would loop into a freeway where I would take the belt back again, and then it would loop to the point where it would have been me and Johnny. And I think the idea back then was that Johnny would take it from me, and then it would go in between Tommaso and Johnny, and it would kind of take me out of the equation." Elsewhere in the interview, he spoke of his pride at becoming the NXT champion, calling it an honor to be picked to represent the NXT brand. Unfortunately for Black, he only ever won 1 title in WWE, which was his NXT title reign, with WWE failing to give him a championship run after his call up to the main roster in 2019. Let's hope there's an AEW TNT or perhaps even world title reign waiting for him in the future. In a recent appearance at Comic-Con at Home 2021, one of the writers of The Simpsons, Caroline O'Mean, revealed that the show's producers have plans to debut a certain wrestling megastar on the show. A fan wrote in to the Comic-Con requesting that there be an episode where Lisa Simpson befriends The Rock, with the writer responding, "There's a story that we actually came up with, Lisa and The Rock, but we don't know if it will happen yet. We're still hoping that The Rock will hear us. If anybody knows The Rock, tell him that we want that. It just seems like a natural fit." Yeardley Smith, who voices Lisa in the show, was also in attendance and agreed that The Rock as a special guest would be a great idea and said, "I've been saying that this is a great idea in my interviews over the last few years. Every time anybody asks which guest star I want on The Simpsons, my answer is always Dwayne Johnson and that I want him to befriend Lisa Simpson." This wouldn't be the first time that a wrestler has appeared as a guest on the show, as Bret the Hitman Hart was in an episode The Old Man and Lisa, which was on season 8, which saw Mr. Burns sell his mansion to Bret after he lost his fortune. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you scroll down and drop a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head towards 20,000 subscribers. But now that you've done that, let's get on with the rest of the video. It has been revealed that a WWE superstar has tested positive for COVID-19 ahead of a meet and greet at Record Bar in Kansas. This was scheduled to take place after Monday Night Raw this week. Jeff Hardy, who defeated NXT champion Karrion Kross last week on Raw, was pulled from the event due to a positive test. This means he will also be missing from WWE TV for the next couple of weeks. Whilst WWE and Jeff are yet to comment on the situation, Record Bar took to their Facebook page to reveal, "We regret to inform you that the event with Jeff Hardy to take place on Monday, July 26, 2021 at Record Bar in Kansas City will have to be postponed to a later date. Jeff Hardy just tested positive for COVID this morning and will have to quarantine for the next 2 weeks and will not be participating in any live events for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully Jeff recovers with no side effects and we see him back and healthy in a couple weeks' time." Kenny Omega recently appeared on the Wrestling Observer Radio where he discussed many topics including CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, which we covered in a previous video, as well as AEW's ongoing relationships with the likes of AAA, Impact Wrestling and New Japan Pro-Wrestling. The Belt Collector discussed why he wanted AEW to work with other promotions, explaining that it's a winning situation for the fans. He then continued on, mentioning WWE and a possible crossover with AEW, of course with these two promotions being the top 2 in the United States. Omega said he doesn't expect them to work together, but added never say never, and he said, "The one huge crossover, will you ever see WWE team up with anybody? Who knows? I feel as the world evolves and changes and time goes by, people become more open-minded to everything, whether it be the wrestlers themselves, people in the office, the fans. I wouldn't hold my breath, but at the same time, I would never say it's impossible." In the past, Omega has expressed his desire for AEW to work with WWE in some capacity, stating that it could happen under the right circumstances. In my opinion, I can't ever see this happening, especially whilst Vince is in charge. Maybe once someone else takes over, let's say Triple H, perhaps he'd be open to an NXT AEW crossover, but I don't think they'd ever give the rub to AEW wrestlers by booking them against their top stars. And finally, we have yet another update regarding the Bryan Danielson CM Punk situation in AEW, this time from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer. Speaking on the Wrestling Observer Radio this morning, he confirmed that unless something falls through, both men are joining All Elite Wrestling. Dave added that there are certain moves being made within the promotion that wouldn't be happening otherwise, which is similar to the report that we had yesterday from bodyslam.net. Meltzer revealed, "I think that everyone kinda knows that unless something falls apart, they're both coming in. If these were not close, if not already done, and there are signs that both are done, but I cannot confirm because no one in the company will confirm it, but there are moves that I know of being made that would only be made if CM Punk was coming in." This begs the question as to what these changes will be, with some speculating that the finish of the all-out main event between Hangman Page and Kenny Omega could be seeing a different result, with people expecting Hangman to win right now, but maybe Omega holds the title in order to set up a title match later on with CM Punk. That's just speculation from me. Meltzer went on to say that AEW was always the most likely destination for Bryan Danielson, adding that there was 90% chance in AEW's favour that he'd join them instead of WWE. WWE's inability to strike a deal with New Japan Pro-Wrestling was what ruled them out in the end, with Bryan having a strong desire to work with the Japanese promotion before his wrestling career comes to an end. Bryan also has interest from AAA in Mexico, with their booker Conan revealing that he has interest in bringing him in via AEW if they were to sign him. And before you go, make sure you check out my 10 cancelled AEW plans video where I discuss CM Punk's history with AEW.